All right, so let's take a quick look at a couple of things you can do to make your comments read a little more professionally and with a little more authority. The first thing you want to do is avoid getting personal. Now, what do I mean by getting personal? Well, quite simply, there's two things you want to avoid if you want to avoid getting personal. And the first is, don't inject yourself into the notes. That is, don't use, I think you should do this, or I think you should do that, or I believe this, or I feel this, or I liked that part, or I didn't like that part. Coverage really is all about, yes, the reader saying what they liked, what they didn't like, but injecting yourself into those notes really diminishes the ability of those notes to remain objective and to remain authoritative. All right, so let's take a quick look at an example of what I'm talking about. So what we've got here is a paragraph in a comment section of a coverage. And, it starts out all right, innocently enough. Currently, it doesn't feel like spending some time with her mother would be so bad, and this makes her unlikable. Fair enough. Seems like a valid note. We need to understand her and her mother's relationship better. All right, so far, all right. I wouldn't use we there, but all right, not bad. And then we go off the rails. I think you can also build on this through complicating and building on her and Eric's relationship. All right, so we're using I think and you, and in that case, not so good. Makes it a little too familiar, a little too personal, and then that kind of one-on-one continues down in the script a little bit. You build up that he's hiding things from her in the first scene. I want also to know more about his relationship with his sister. And then another example, I just want to understand a little more of her backstory. In general, you want to write objectively and with insight and authority, not too stiff or scholarly, but not too casual either. Be as objective as you can within this very subjective line of work, and the more professional and objective you sound, the more credible your coverage will be, and the more you're helping screenwriters grow or agents and producers understand what kind of film they've got on their hands. A couple of quick do's and don'ts. Do avoid commenting on nitpicky facts and trivia. Focus on the big stuff that makes a difference. For example, if you've got, let's say, a pirate movie, and maybe they get the use of the sails wrong, or the mizzen mast isn't where it's supposed to be, or someone comments incorrectly on some sort of bit of technology. Who cares? Focus on what's most important about that scene. Is the main character interesting enough? Is there enough action in that scene? Is there enough conflict? Is there drama? Is the dialogue coming across well or believably? Those little nitpicky historical things, or even nitpicky dialogue, anything that's nitpicky within any category, even if it's within a category that's valid and a typical metric of what script coverage generally talks about, such as plot or character or dialogue or what have you, if it's nitpicky, you want to avoid it in general. Do keep in mind that you'll probably mostly be reading very bad screenplays throughout your script reading career. So you're going to need to be patient, you're going to need to stay professional, and you're going to need to be constructive at all times, even when you're writing coverage for a really, really bad script. Do feel free to reference other films. If you are a filmophile, if you're really into movies and you have a great filmmaking background, you know a lot of history about or trivia about films or celebrities, actors, directors, what have you, bring that to bear in your coverage, because your cinephile, your filmmaking background, that's an asset. And so if you can bring that value to your coverage, that's great. That being said, you don't want to lard up your coverage with comparison after comparison. A couple of quick don'ts. Don't rehash the plot summary or the plot points in the comment section. Comment on those plot points, comment on the plot summary, but don't rehash them. I see this all the time. A lot of comment sections basically just take the entire synopsis line by line and then comment on they basically respell out the synopsis or the beats that happen, and then they comment on them. And it's an easy way for amateur script readers to fill space in a coverage template, but it's really, most people will see through that. So you really want to kind of avoid rehashing those plot points. If you're bringing up a plot point for a specific reason, do it briefly and get to the note as quickly as possible. Along those lines, don't write filler. So here's an example of what I call filler or fluff. Sci-fi films with killer aliens have always been popular amongst general audiences. Take, for example, Alien. Box office $500 million. Or how about this one, for example? The film never settles on one theme. It bounces from theme to theme. One moment it's one theme, the next moment it's another theme. If the script would decide on a theme, it would make the script much better, due to the fact that it won't be bouncing from theme to theme, and instead has settled on a theme. Filler can also mean consistently avoiding the use of contractions in favor of their longer form in order to fill up space. When you do that, it can read very stiffly, and a lot of people can see through that, whether your boss is an agent or your coworker is a producer or you're working for yourself and the client is going to read that coverage ultimately. They're going to see that it's very obvious that you've padded your coverage with these non-contractions. Don't write with sarcasm or with anger or condescension or with any other non-professional tone, and that includes insulting or judgmental language of any kind. Be critical, but don't be a jerk. Along those same lines, don't write self-help or motivational verbiage or saccharine encouragement or flattery. So be nice, but don't be a big phony and don't fluff it up with a lot of positive, happy verbiage. And finally, avoid educational text within your comment section. A comment section in a script coverage is not the time nor the place to teach someone how to write screenplays. Now, that being said, there's a lot to be learned from reading coverage, especially if you're getting repeated coverage and you're getting that constant feedback from whether it's a script coverage company like mine, Screenplay Readers, or from a writer's group, or from an agent or manager who you're working with. But as far as direct educational material, for one, it comes off as very rehashed. It comes off as, okay, well, this person who's writing this educational material within the comments could have possibly copied and pasted this directly from a book or a previous coverage that they did. And secondly, it takes up all that valuable space I'm talking about that you could be filling with actual notes that could actually help or improve the script or help the client of the script coverage understand more about the script at hand. For example, an agent doesn't want to learn the craft of screenwriting. So what would he or she have to do with a comment like this? The first 20 pages are highly engaging and well written. As any first act should, the main characters are introduced and the setting is nicely established without having to rely upon much exposition. While the writing can be quite wordy at times, the lengthy action sequences taking up the bulk of the script, the paragraphs are broken down into smaller and more manageable chunks to appease the reader's eyes. Like, what is that? That is all just fluff, padding, and way too educational of a comment to include in the comment section. As any first act should, the main actors are introduced and the setting is nicely established without having to rely upon much exposition. Nobody I know can use that note, whether they're a screenwriter, producer, filmmaker. No one I know could use something that vague and that general in any script coverage. And if someone's paying for that script coverage, they're going to be very disappointed. Unfortunately, this example of script coverage goes through many of those examples. There's just tons of that in here. Here's another example. Act 1 is well written and establishes the setting, though an exact time and location would also be greatly beneficial, even for a fantasy-based story, and throws the reader immediately into the main character's world without getting bogged down in backstory and exposition. Well, that, again, is redundant and way too educational, way too vague, way too general. And not only that, it basically repeats what this coverage, this comment section has already established up here. It's almost the same thing I just read just about a minute ago out loud. So keep your comment section free of all that educational, motivational BS, because you're either going to come off as someone who's lifting entire passages from a screenwriting ebook or website, or you're going to give the reader of that script coverage the impression that you're copying and pasting in these generic kind of made one-size-fit-all notes from a previous coverage into this coverage. And in either case, you're not going to win over too many fans if you're going to be writing your script coverages like that. Spend the time giving great notes, and you can't go wrong. So those are the basics of how to write script coverage comments. Keep in mind they can be anywhere from one line of text to 4 pages, 5 pages sometimes. Although if you get past that, you're generally not doing coverage anymore. Remember that agents, producers, filmmakers, screenwriters, they all have their certain wants that they're looking for in the comment section. So you're going to see a variety of different ways of doing them. Some are going to be more agent or studio centric. Some are going to be more writer centric. They're usually single-spaced, 12-point font. The paragraphs are broken up into complete thoughts, just like your synopses. Comments are generally focused on the big things, the important things, such as the the characters or the conflict or the stakes or the dialogue, whatever is most important about that script, that's what you want to focus on in your comment section. The best kind of comments are written from a very experienced point of view. So the more you learn, the more you experience about screenwriting, the more you soak into that noodle, the better your comments are ultimately going to be. You want to remember to use specific examples when making notes whenever you can, 1 or 2 at least in every comment section, including page numbers for specific things you're talking about. You also want to make creative suggestions here and there, so you're not just saying, here's what's wrong with the script or this particular point, but here's how to fix it, in my opinion. You want to use tact. You want to sound like a pro whenever possible. You want to have that authority, and that precludes getting personal with your script coverage comments, either using I think or I believe, or using you to address the writer or the producer directly within the text of the comment section. You want to write objectively and with insight. You want to avoid nitpicky facts and trivia and little things that really don't matter. You want to remember that you're going to be mostly reading pretty bad screenplays throughout your entire script reading career, so you need to be patient and stay professional at all times. You want to remember that all that cinephile information you have in your head, all that data about movies and all that knowledge you've gleaned over the years, all of that is an asset. You want to pepper your coverage with 1 or 2 of those whenever applicable, but not overdo it. You want to avoid rehashing the plot summary or the plot synopsis within the comment section itself, because that's just not the time nor the place for it. So keep the synopsis in the synopsis and keep the comments strictly comments. You want to avoid writing filler. You want to avoid sarcasm and anger and condescension or anything else that's non-professional. And you want to avoid self-help or motivational verbiage. And you want to avoid educational verbiage that could come off like you're basically copying and pasting from a screenwriting book or from a previous coverage. If you can keep all that in mind as you start writing your script coverage comments, you can't go wrong. Thanks for watching.